This Chinese electric car has Tesla executives scrambling. A car that might not just go fast, but what if it could last 1,000,000 miles? Meet the BYD Han, China's quiet killer in the electric car game. Real-world data, teardown reports, even JD Power says it's no fluke. But is it truly built to go the distance? Or is it just the most cost-effective million-mile EV on the road today? Today, we put it to the test. This is the 1,000,000-mile BYD. We're talking electricity costs, tire wear, brake jobs, battery degradation, insurance premiums, and all the little things that quietly drain your wallet over time. Because owning an EV isn't just about range or 0 to 60, it's about total cost over time, and in this case, over an insanely long time. Before we start throwing around numbers like 1,000,000 miles, let's take a second to talk about what the BYD Han actually is. Because unless you live in Europe or Asia, chances are you've never seen one in person. The BYD Han is a full-size electric sedan made by BYD, China's homegrown EV powerhouse. And when we say powerhouse, we mean it. BYD actually overtook Tesla in global EV sales by the end of 2023. So this isn't a boutique brand or a fringe concept car. It's a mass-produced flagship, aimed squarely at people who want Tesla-level performance and luxury without paying Model S prices. What makes the Han interesting isn't just the specs or the looks though, it's how it's positioned. This car isn't just for early adopters or green tech fans. It's for people who want to drive the same car for a long time. And that's where the million-mile question comes in. Because BYD isn't promising gimmicks or future upgrades, they're promising practicality. And for some owners, that means driving this thing into the 6-digit mileage range and beyond. So when we ask whether the BYD Han can actually last 1,000,000 miles, we're not just testing an EV, we're testing the idea that a high-mileage electric life is actually affordable, sustainable, and maybe even better than what came before. Let's get into the numbers, because saying a car still runs after 1,000,000 miles is one thing, but at what cost? First off, let's start with electricity. On average, in the US, electricity runs about 14 cents per kilowatt hour. The BYD Han is pretty efficient, getting roughly 4 miles per kilowatt hour. If you do the math, to drive 1,000,000 miles, you'd burn through around 250,000 kilowatt hours. Multiply that by the cost per kilowatt hour, and you're looking at about $35,000 over the entire lifetime of the car just for electricity. That might sound like a lot, but it's important to put that into perspective. Consider a typical gas car that averages 25 miles per gallon. To cover 1,000,000 miles, you'd need about 40,000 gallons of fuel. At a fairly reasonable $3.50 per gallon, that's $140,000 spent on gas. So compared to a traditional internal combustion engine, running the BYD Han is practically pocket change. That's a massive advantage, and it's one of the key reasons EVs like the Han can offer better value over the long haul. Energy costs alone are a huge win for the Han, but of course, the real elephant in the room with electric cars is the battery. Here's where BYD's proprietary blade battery technology comes into play. The Han uses lithium iron phosphate cells, known as LFP batteries, which are different from the more common nickel manganese cobalt, or NMC cells you find in many other EVs. LFP batteries are known for slower degradation and better thermal stability, which means they tend to hold their charge longer and are less prone to overheating. BYD boldly claims that their battery can last up to 1.2 million kilometers, around 745,000 miles, while still retaining 80% of its original capacity. That's impressive when you think about it. But here's the catch. Real-world long-term data is still pretty scarce. Most EVs haven't been on the road that long, so we're mostly relying on manufacturer promises and some early owner reports. if the battery ever needs replacement, and that might be way down the road. The cost is estimated somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000 based on teardown analysis and chatter from Chinese EV forums. That's not trivial, but it's also not catastrophic compared to some older EV battery replacements. Overall, BYD's battery tech looks promising, but without long-term data beyond 200,000 miles or so, it's still a bit of an unknown. If the battery lives up to the hype, the Han could be a real contender for the kind of longevity that was once unheard of in electric vehicles. Now let's talk about the real-world wear and tear that comes with pushing a car to 1,000,000 miles. You've probably guessed it. Tires and brakes are going to be your most frequent visitors in the shop. Because EVs are heavier than gas-powered cars, thanks mostly to the battery packs, tire wear can happen faster than you might expect. Most Han owners can expect to replace tires every 30,000 to 40,000 miles, depending on how aggressive your driving is and what kind of roads you're on. Spread that out over 1,000,000 miles and you're looking at around 25 to 33 sets of tires. That adds up fast. At roughly $1,000 per set for a decent replacement, we're talking somewhere in the ballpark of $25,000 just to keep rubber on the road. But when it comes to brakes, that's where electric vehicles like the Han shine. Thanks to regenerative braking, which uses the electric motor to slow the car and feed energy back into the battery, traditional brake pads don't wear down nearly as fast. Some EV owners report not needing a brake job for over 150,000 miles. That's a serious bonus when you're planning to hit 7 figures on the odometer. Still, eventually, components like calipers, rotors, and fluid lines need attention, and none of that's free. It's not just tires and brakes either. Suspension parts wear out over time, bushings go soft, AC compressors get tired, rubber hoses crack. No matter how advanced the tech under the hood is, the physical components underneath still have to battle gravity, weather, and potholes. Most estimates put routine wear and tear costs for an EV driven this hard at around $15,000 to $20,000, assuming you're not skimping on quality repairs. Of course, no conversation about car ownership would be complete without that dreaded yearly expense: insurance. And if you're driving a BYD Han in the US, where it's just starting to gain traction, you're likely looking at somewhere between $900 and $1,500 a year for full coverage, depending on where you live and your driving history. Multiply that by 15 to 20 years, which is roughly how long it would take most people to hit 1,000,000 miles, and you're sitting on a bill somewhere in the range of $13,500 to $30,000 just in premiums. Moving on to long-term reliability, things get a bit hazy. As of now, BYD doesn't appear on J.D. Power's US rankings or Consumer Reports annual reliability lists. It's not that they're rated poorly, it's that they're not rated at all. The Han is still too new to the American market, and there isn't just enough long-term ownership data to draw definitive conclusions. That's not necessarily a red flag, but it is something to keep in mind. On the other hand, reports out of China, where BYD has sold millions of vehicles, paint a more encouraging picture. Fleet data shows very low failure rates for the powertrain, battery, and motor. In fact, Chinese owners regularly report that even after hundreds of thousands of miles, the battery degradation is minimal, and motor issues are practically non-existent. What BYD seems to have done right is build an EV with simplicity in mind. Fewer moving parts compared to an internal combustion engine means fewer failure points. It's not that nothing will ever break. It's just that there's less to break in the first place. That's a compelling argument for long-haul ownership. But here's the thing, even the most bulletproof engineering doesn't mean much if you can't actually drive the car enough to justify it. So let's look at what it actually takes to rack up 1,000,000 miles. The number sounds impressive, because it is, but the moment you sit down and do the math, really hits fast. To drive 1,000,000 miles, you need to average about 50,000 miles a year. That's over 137 miles a day. Every day, rain or shine, weekdays and weekends, holidays included. Unless you're a long-haul commuter or just really hate flying, that's a serious lifestyle choice. For the average person, this just isn't feasible. Most Americans drive around 13 to 15,000 miles a year, which means it would take them 65 to 75 years to hit that million-mile mark. And let's be honest, you're probably not going to hand this car down to your great-grandkids just to make that happen. So, who is this kind of mileage actually for? The answer is fleet drivers. We're talking ride-share workers, delivery services, taxi drivers, the kind of people who are behind the wheel for work, not just errands. And in those scenarios, the Han really enters the spotlight. In fact, there are already BYD e-taxis in Shenzhen that have logged over 400,000 miles in just 4 years. Those cars are driven constantly, charged daily, and still show minimal signs of degradation. That's the kind of use case where BYD's durability claims start to look less like marketing and more like measurable reality. So yeah, hitting a million miles in a BYD Han, it's possible. But it's not something your average suburban driver is going to pull off. Before we wrap this up, let's tally it all up. Over 1 million miles, your biggest expense is still tires. The weight and torque of the Han eat through rubber faster than most sedans. Expect to spend close to $40,000 just rotating through sets. Add $35,000 in electricity, about $27,000 in insurance over 2 decades, and around $20,000 in maintenance if you keep everything running smoothly. The battery, if it needs replacement outside warranty, that's another $9,000 to $12,000. Though with luck, you won't hit that bill at all. Put it all together and you're looking at a grand total between $120,000 and $135,000. Sounds like a lot until you remember that a gas-powered car doing the same distance could easily cost you more than $250,000 in fuel and upkeep alone. And that's not even accounting for the downtime, oil changes, engine issues, or transmission replacements that come with ICE vehicles. Before you buy any EV, watch our previous video, 5 EVs that won't last 100,000 kilometers. Do not buy. We exposed 5 EVs that couldn't even make it to 100,000 kilometers without falling apart. Luxury cars that glitched, broke down, or flat out refused to start. But the BYD Han is a different ballgame entirely. This isn't some Silicon Valley prototype running on blind optimism. It doesn't pretend to be a spaceship. It's just a well-built EV, engineered for the long haul. So if the last video was a warning, this one is a reminder. Not all EVs are built the same. Some chase attention, others chase longevity. If you believe your next EV should go a million miles, smash that like button. We'd also love to know how long you think an EV should last to be worth it to you. 200K? 500K? A million? Let's hear from you guys. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos on real-world breakdowns and quietly brutal honesty on the cars that matter. See you in the next one.